Who is the most overrated coach in the SEC? Who's the most underrated? Time to get our squad together.
You're talking ball with the SEC squad. From Alabama to Tennessee, from Georgia to Oklahoma, from Auburn to Texas, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming SEC weekend. It's the SEC squad, and we have a seat for you. Hurt feelings and thin skin are prohibited. Squad up, you're part of the SEC squad.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome in the SEC squad. Sit back, grab your favorite beverage, and join us as we get you ready for another week of the offseason in SEC college football. Of course, SEC hoops heating up, and man, it's been a historic season for the SEC on the basketball front. But we're talking some football today, and squad spring ball gets underway very soon. A lot of offseason discussions are already taking place. We've talked about the SEC bringing back every head coach for the first time in a long time. Not one SEC coach was fired or retired this offseason. And so we posed the question to you guys right out of the gates. Who, in your opinion, is the most overrated coach in the SEC? Let's go around the horn today. We've got Stephen Willis from Locked On Ole Miss, Corey Burton, Locked On Vandy, Jimmy Stein, Locked On Bama, John Miller, Locked On Mizzou. I'm Chris Gordy, host of Locked On SEC. Stephen Willis, start us off, man. Who, in your opinion, is the most overrated coach in the Southeastern Conference?
I was sitting here thinking like Billy Napier, but Billy Napier did a very good job at the end of this year and turned it around with Florida. I think I'm going to land with Hugh Freeze. I don't think any coach has ever gotten that many mileage over a couple of wins over Nick Saban than Hugh Freeze did. It's a situation. If he doesn't win 8 games this year, he gets fired by the Yellowwood man, and all of a sudden Auburn's back at square one. So I think Hugh Freeze is the most overrated head coach the way it sits right now. He could change my mind. He could win 9-10 games next year. They have the talent to do it, but he has to do it each and every single year. It seems like he loses to a New Mexico State or one of those games. So you can't really be a great coach, which he gets all the credit for being, whenever you have games like that.
And that's probably a good one because it's, look, when we say overrated, it means a lot of people rate that guy high, right? So you can't go with, you can't say, I don't know, Clark Lee. Nobody thinks he's great at Vandy, although he's raising expectations there. But
he would fit the other category. Yeah.
Corey, give me who's your overrated coach in the SEC?
This was a tough one. I mean, I really like the Hugh Freeze answer because he gets a lot of unwarranted love, and for somebody who loses to Diego Pavia every single year, no matter what team he's on, it's amazing. But it's I'm gonna put out there Brian Kelly because he does not enough with all that talent he's got. I mean, with Jaden Daniels, I felt like he should have been in the playoff. Like I feel like he just kind of loses 3-4 games every year, and just kind of comes up short a lot. And I don't know what he's going to do this year. Like I said, he could go 12-0 this year with the team he's got coming back. But I don't know. He just seems to underwhelm every single time. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I'm going to say Brian Kelly.
It's an interesting one because he's a guy who averages 9-10 wins a year. But, yeah, I mean, you had the Heisman Trophy winner, Jaden Daniels, but your defense was so historically bad, and there's a reason why Matt House is back in the NFL. Again, nobody wanted him in college, so he had to go seek greener pastures elsewhere. But
it's those little things, Chris. Like that's what I'm kind of thinking. Like those little things that make a 9-10 win coach. Like you're expecting at LSU, you're expecting him to compete for national championships and be in that playoff talk every single year, and he's just not quite there.
And last year they had 2 of the better wide receivers, some of the best wide receiver group they've ever had with Jaden Daniels as the quarterback, and they still weren't able to hit those levels that they should have hit. That defense was so bad, you just threw away a generational offense that was almost Joe Burrow level at LSU. That was rough. He has to take responsibility for that. He owns that.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Last year, the defense was better, but still a couple of losses. Jimmy, who in your opinion is the most overrated coach in the SEC?
Yeah, I hesitate, emphasizing overrated because I do think this guy's a good football coach, and I appreciate this little run he's on. But I think we need to tap the brakes a little bit with Shane Beamer. Just tap the brakes. I'm not saying, that the hot seat him. I'm intrigued by what he's doing. I'm impressed by what he's doing. He's doing it at a place that's kind of difficult to win. But I think if you look at these preseason expectations coming up, I think we all know Texas and Georgia are going to be 1 and 2 in just about everyone's preseason predictions. Then there's going to be a really wide split as to who's number 3. A lot of people are going to put South Carolina there. And that's what I mean by tapping the brakes a little bit. I don't think Shane Beamer has done enough as a head coach at South Carolina to justify things like preseason top 10, number 3 in the SEC. They lost a lot off that defense. Sellers played well, and he's a talented kid. I don't know that you can put him up there with quarterbacks who have achieved more for longer periods of time in their career, maybe like even Garrett Nussmeier. So I would say Shane Beamer is momentarily overrated because I think people are a little too high on South Carolina at this specific moment.
That's how I feel about Sellers too. Pump the brakes. Not quite overrated, but like, hey, hold on, let's slow down a little bit. Let's see what he does this year.
Exactly.
That's a great way of putting it. I never thought about the pump the brakes thing, but that's a great way.
If you're a South Carolina fan, though, definitely be excited. We're not telling you not to be excited.
Sure.
We're just saying outsiders who are all jumping aboard the bandwagon. We've seen this happen time before, where everybody hops on that train, and then suddenly they're 3 and 2 out of the gates and 4 losses and that sort of thing. John Miller, who's your overrated?
I was leaning toward Brian Kelly as well at first. I don't know that he gets maybe enough guff for the bad hires maybe he's made on the defensive side of the ball since he's thought of as an offensive guy. But since that was taken, since Hugh Freeze was taken, I'm going to go maybe a little bit off the board here and say that Mark Stoops is a little overrated, because here's why. I think he's done a great job at Kentucky. Everybody can see that. But I think Stoops is a guy who is a better coach in the previous era of college football, meaning pre-transfer portal, pre-NIL. Everything Mark Stoops does well, I don't think necessarily is as advantageous in 2025 as it was in 2019.
Yeah, I think as soon as that Iowa job comes open, he takes it.
Yeah, it's tough on him because I had somebody talking about him the other day, and okay, he went 10-3 3 years ago. That's a minor miracle at a school like Kentucky, and then 7-6 and 7-6 before everything fell off last year. So, like, if he can bounce back and get to 7-6, that's about where Kentucky wants to be. Bowl eligible, you're somewhat relevant. You're pulling off an upset or two every year. Like, that's about where Kentucky should be, and that's why he's getting paid like he is, because he did that at Kentucky. He maintained with all those terrible years they had.
I agree with you, and I'm not trying to crush him as a coach or crush his career or anything like that. But again, if he was such an amazing coach, if he was like a top half of the league type of coach, then why did Texas A&M's fans basically have a revolt when they thought that Stoops was going to be the next coach of the Aggies? That kind of tells you something right there, doesn't it? I mean, I guess it tells you that Texas A&M fans are crazy, but I don't know. I just think if he was really the bee's knees, sorry to use a real modern phrase there, kids, but I just think that Texas A&M would have probably not had quite that violent of a reaction.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to that, John. I mean, I get that. I don't think he's like quite top half, but I also think he's kind of burnt out at Kentucky. I think he's kind of bored and kind of burnt out, and I think he wants to change. He made that evident when he talked with Texas A&M.
Let's welcome in our buddy John Williams, host of Locked On Sooners. And John, we're kicking around the question, who is the most overrated coach in the SEC? So right off the top, no time to think about it. Give me who your most overrated coach is.
Oh my goodness. I don't have a great answer for this one. I feel like everybody's pretty properly rated right now. I think Kaylen DeBoer maybe comes to mind just because all of the success that he had leading into Alabama and then kind of the letdown of the 9-3 regular season for them, losing on the road and the way that they lost to Oklahoma. I think that makes him a little bit overrated, but I still like the coach. I still think he's a really good coach. I think just he didn't live up to expectations last year. Elsewhere, I mean, it's hard to really pinpoint one guy that I could say you're absolutely overrated, because I feel like everybody was just kind of where they should be in 2024. Obviously I would like to think Brent Venables is better than what he showed. Maybe the underrated part's coming up next, but yeah, nobody really stands out.
I'm going to piss off Stephen Willis here and take a. How about Lane Kiffin? Never been in the playoff. I mean, top portal classes every year, doing a pretty good job recruiting. Awesome offenses, high flying offenses. Like, all right. I mean, 9-10 wins a year is great, but when you're going to always the bridesmaid, never the bride, right? Like, when are you going to make?
Speaking of pump the brakes, now we have to remember Lane Kiffin's an Ole Miss and 3 10-win seasons in 4 years. That's a major, major deal. But Lane Kiffin, you're right. Lane Kiffin needs to win something. He needs to make the playoffs. That's the next step. If they want to ascend, if they want to have that Clemson track, Lane Kiffin has to get them there quickly.
Next year,
if he wants to be a top 5 coach, consider a top 5 coach. And look, he's moved up the list quick because you got, Saban's gone. I mean, Harbaugh's gone. Like all these coaches who have won are all leaving. So it's like there's Kirby and I guess Dabo, if you want to put him up there. I guess Ryan Day enters the conversation now. But like Kiffin's well thought of. But if you're going to want to be considered elite, dude, make the playoff.
Yeah, last year was the perfect opportunity. I always say that the SEC didn't play down and the Big Ten wasn't dominant. The problem is the best roster potentially in the SEC last year was Ole Miss, and Ole Miss kind of crapped the bed. Mm-hmm. And the playoffs would have looked completely different if Kentucky and Florida didn't happen.
So, Steve, let me ask you this. If Jackson Dart gets drafted tail end of the first round, has a really nice rookie season, if he gets a chance to play, depending on where he goes, does the opinion change? Like, hey, you had this first-round quarterback and you couldn't make the playoff. Does that change people's opinions about Lane Kiffin, or does it kind of keep it the same?
No, we're still at the point in the Ole Miss fan base that 10 wins is kind of enough for them at the moment. Like I said, he needs to get there because fan bases are fickle the way it works. But the way we sit right now, 3 10-win seasons in 4 years, yeah, you can probably eat out on that quite a bit.
I think there's just a bunch of good coaches, and you have Kirby, who's probably the only elite coach in the conference. And that's why I feel like it's hard to pinpoint anybody as being overrated necessarily, because there's nobody aside from Kirby that I would say is elite. And then that next step down, you have the Sarks and the Lane Kiffins and the Kaylen DeBoers and Brian Kelly, a good solid group of coaches that have done some good things, but have not ascended into that elite status yet.
Well, everyone thinks Brian Kelly is elite. Is
Kirby overrated? I mean, 2 straight years not winning a championship. He misses the playoff 2 years ago. He's one and done this past year.
No, I'm not going there yet. No.
Fire Kirby. Yeah.
Fire Kirby and let him come to Oklahoma. I'll take that.
Sure, I'm sure no one will want him if Georgia fires him. Yeah, sure.
We're joking. Who is the most underrated coach in the SEC? The SEC squad. Talking more ball next. Back to the squad in just a second, but attention SEC fans. The future of college sports is here, and it is transparent. It is the Roy app. Before the Roy app, NIL negotiations often happened under the table, and fans did not have a clear way to directly support the athletes they love. Now with Roy, you get to be a part of the change and support SEC athletes in the most transparent way possible. Roy, the NIL app allows you to choose the player you want to support, decide how much to contribute, and receive exclusive content from the athletes you back. And the best part, if your player transfers, you get your money back. It's a risk-free way to show your support. The Roy app is giving fans control, no more uncertainty. Now you can provide transparent, impactful support and help shape the team and the future of college sports with your contributions. Go download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing SEC athletes the way they deserve, with transparency, trust, and a real impact. This is the future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Roy, R-O-Y, and supporting your favorite players. All right, SEC squad rolling along here, off-season edition. We got spring ball starting up very soon, and we're kicking around some of the SEC coaches. We already did who we think is the most overrated coach in the SEC. Now, let's humble brag. Who's the most underrated coach in the SEC? Steven, start with you.
Eli Drinkwitz. You don't go to Missouri and win 10 games a year and be a bad football coach. And he doesn't get the credit that he deserves. But if he can continue this and it's a similar situation to Lane Kiffin. His next step is to actually win something. If they can do that, they will ascend to the next level of coach. If you want to get to that area that Kirby Smart lives in, you eventually got to win something.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that.
It's been a great build for him too, right? 5-5, 6-7, 6-7, then 11-2, 10-3. Like if he keeps this up, he may not be at Mizzou much longer. Like somebody may come calling and pay him top dollar and steal him.
Now, what school would that be? That will throw. Like, no, wait, which is the bigger school than? I'm not saying that Missouri's the absolute top of the mountain, but the Alabama job's not open. I know we were just joking around about it. Kirby Smart is not going anywhere. Like, what job is Eli Drinkwitz going to come take? Because it ain't Arkansas.
Miami? I don't know.
Miami, Florida. They already have a coach.
Well, if they fire,
yeah, he's going to go.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I just didn't think Miami was that close to firing their coach.
I will say this and be honest. Let's say that Hugh Freeze pulls 7 wins this season. There's a chance that Auburn comes calling.
Well, the interesting thing there is he has a pretty close relationship with Auburn's previous coach there, too, whose name is now escaping me at the very moment. But come on, help me out. Gordy, somebody.
Gus Malzahn.
Harsin or
Yeah,
Malzahn?
well, I think it wasn't just Malzahn, but who was the one before? Who was the one
Harsin.
after that?
Harsin.
Harsin, thank you.
Yeah.
Him and Harsin are very close. He's also close with Malzahn. I think if anybody knows how weird the Auburn admin is, it's got to be Eli Drinkwitz.
Yeah.
Corey, let's jump to you. Most underrated coach in the SEC.
Most underrated. I think, well, I mean, the obvious answer that I'm going to say is Clark Lee, because he's flipped it around. He's done a complete 180. He's starting to kind of build some things. I think he struck gold with Diego Pavia, obviously, and struck gold hiring Jerry Kill and Tim Beck and finding that offensive identity. He also did a really good job and made a really smart decision on saying, hey, I'm just going to take over the defense myself because that's my specialty. And he got him to 7 wins on that schedule. Took Missouri, who was a really good team. They finished y'all finished the regular season 9-3. Did you win your bowl game, John?
Yep. 10-3, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 10-3. Took that team to double overtime.
Double overtime, yep.
And if they don't hit that shot play to Burton, I think they win that game in overtime.
There was a couple plays that if they don't happen, Vanderbilt easily could have won that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And so like things like that, like early on the season, following a humiliating loss at Georgia State, coming off of that to take Missouri, who at the time was in the top 10, to double overtime and then turning around and beating Alabama the next week. It just kind of showed you the trajectory and all the changes that he made. And maybe maybe something clicked for him. So I'm going with Clark Lee as well on that.
Georgia State, by the way, return trip to Nashville this year, the revenge game.
I'm hoping it is a true revenge game and it's like 100-0. Probably not, but yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if Vandy could score 100 on air, but I get your point.
Yeah. Well, we'll get as close as we can and maybe score 35. So,
Bobby is back, man. Come on, John Williams, most underrated coach in the SEC.
Yeah, I'll go with Shane Beamer. I think it was a little bit of a rough start to get going, but now he's got a quarterback that has a little something to him in Lenore Sellers, a guy that has the intangibles to lead an offense and lead a football team and make those winning type of plays that you need to be able to make to win big games. And we're starting to see a defensive identity that is developed along the defensive front with big time edge rush talent. And I think he's got that program on a really, really nice trajectory. Where it ends up, we'll see. But I mean, Lenore Sellers, we talked about Lenore Sellers in the group chat. Like a lot of people were very, very high on him in SEC circles, and he could potentially be a dark horse Heisman candidate with his ability to run the ball and his ability to throw. I mean, it's improving week by week. I think Shane Beamer has got that thing rolling right now.
Interesting. One of you had Beamer as one of the more overrated, and John's going underrated. So our first coach falls in both categories.
Properly rated. I don't know. We're in the middle.
Jimmy Stein, who's underrated in your mind?
Yeah, I'll use the same phrase I used before in relation to Beamer about pumping the brakes a little bit. And that's, Corey and John Miller made good points about Brian Kelly. I'd pump the brakes a little bit. The fact that we're discussing him as overrated almost makes him underrated to me. I think if you look at the last 2 seasons at LSU, there's a lot of reason for concern. There's a lot of disappointment. But when you look at Brian Kelly's entire career, all the winning he did even before he got to Notre Dame, 2 playoff appearances, wins the SEC West in year 1 at LSU, produces a Heisman Trophy winner. I was in a conversation recently about if you could choose an SEC head coach going forward from today forward, would you choose Brian Kelly or Shane Beamer almost everyone in the conversation said Beamer. And to me, that is so much recency bias. South Carolina perceived as hot, LSU perceived as down. I'm not so sure that either things are true. As a matter of fact, next year, and LSU beat South Carolina last year, by the way, got a little help from the officials, but South Carolina returns the trip to Baton Rouge this year. I'm just not so quick at putting Shane Beamer above Brian Kelly based on career accomplishment to this point. I think the fact we discussed Brian Kelly as overrated, and again, Corey and John made great points. True, but I wouldn't bury Brian Kelly just yet.
Yeah, and all those games he won, like 118 games as head coach at Grand Valley State before he even got to the upper level. Like, people compared him and DeBoer, and I'm like, well, at least Kelly had the stops at Central Michigan, a couple of 10-win seasons at Cincinnati, and then people forget Notre Dame wasn't very good when he got there and started winning 8, 9, 10 games a year.
Two playoff appearances in a 14 playoff. Notre Dame. How many would he have made if it was a 12-team playoff the entire time he was there? I'm just saying there's a lot of career accomplishment there to just assume 2 years ago he all of a sudden forgot how to coach.
Yeah, and some of that also is the Notre Dame bias. I mean, Marcus Freeman's enjoying those pay off right now. Hey, we're on NBC every week, and hey, if we just win our weak-ass schedule, we get in the playoff. Awesome. John Miller, give me your most underrated coach in the SEC.
Well, I'm sure listeners want me to say Eli Drinkwitz, but you know what? Steven did a hell of a job making that case already. So you know what? I'm actually going to say Kaylen DeBoer, because I think after one season, again, speaking of recency bias, Jimmy, I think Alabama fans and fans across the country have already decided that, oh my God, 1 9-3 season means, and one bad t-shirt division means that Kaylen DeBoer must be a terrible football coach now. I'm not so sure that that's true. The guy was just in the national championship with Washington a couple years ago, and took a guy in Michael Penix Jr., who was not thought of, was a transfer quarterback from Indiana, was not thought of as this major high-grade quarterback, and turned him into a guy who now looks like he may actually be a real piece in the NFL too. So I think DeBoer can coach. Unfortunately, he's just in many ways, unenviable position of following possibly the greatest of all time.
Yeah, John, I love that point. And had I not said Clark Lee, Kaylen DeBoer was going to be my next one, because he had a bad puzzle piece with Jalen Milroe, because Jalen Milroe just does not fit his scheme. And I think once he gets his guy, like once he gets the next Michael Penix, who's a kind of a quick game distributor, get the ball out quick, run the offense like a well-oiled machine, I think he'll be just fine.
Corey makes great. One of my themes for this year about Alabama guys is, I think in so many ways, 2024 was about Jalen Milroe and how far he could carry the team or not. And 2025 will be about Kaylen DeBoer. We'll find out this fall whether he's good enough. Most of the roster will have committed to Kaylen DeBoer, chosen to stay and play for Kaylen DeBoer. This is Kaylen DeBoer's team, not Nick Saban and Jalen Milroe's team, which was kind of the case last year.
Yeah. By the way, Alabama has one of the best home schedules for season ticket holders next year out there, with Oklahoma and LSU and Tennessee.
Wisconsin.
Vandy revenge game.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, you joke, but Diego Pavia is a star, baby. Come on.
It's true.
He's a star.
Right,
Must-see TV.
Let's pause it right there. When we return, I'll give you my underrated, and I think you guys are going to hate it. The SEC squad rolling along here, and we were kicking around before the timeout, most underrated coach in the SEC. And guys, I'm going to put a guy who was 40-12 in his previous stop as a head coach. Now, things have gotten off to a rocky start, but that's because the schedule has been absolutely freaking brutal. And I think Billy Napier at Florida, he's got the train on the track now, 6-7, 5-7, 8-5. But look at those damn schedules he's had, the most brutal schedules in the SEC. He's got DJ Lagway. Schedule's still tough, don't get me wrong, but I think Billy Napier deserves a little bit more credit for how he turned that thing around at Florida last year. And if Lagway is as good as we think he can be, Billy Napier might be one of the most underrated coaches in the SEC.
Florida beating Texas this year is absolutely a possibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got to, as much as it pains me to do it, I've got to give Billy Napier his credit and Florida credit for turning that thing around. And yeah,
I'm impressed by how he finished, but I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles want any part of that schedule. You know, their schedule is absolutely brutal. Again, all it's done is flip road home. It's really, really tough.
Yeah,
Very
anytime
true.
you can coach yourself off the hot seat, it's a pretty darn good job. We'll see if he can keep himself off the hot seat in 25.
Let me throw one other name out there that maybe we didn't bring up an overrated or underrated, but go look at what Tennessee was with Butch Jones and Jeremy Pruitt and what Josh Heupel has done there. Oh, he's just won 52 games in the last couple of years there. Like, he has brought Tennessee back. I think Heupel deserves a little bit of love.
I agree.
He does. I don't know that he deserves overrated or underrated. I think
He's a good coach.
Just rate it.
He's just rated. Yeah,
It's pretty properly
right where he
rated.
needs to be. He's a good coach. Done a great job. Needs to advance a little bit and get past some of these, like that Ohio State game, games like that. But I think he's a great coach.
If he makes the playoff again, he'll be viewed in a really different light.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could easily make an argument for him as number 2 behind Kirby Smart. To me, I think that highly of Heupel for sure.
He's definitely a top 4 coach in the SEC, in my opinion.
For sure.
Whether he's not, he's not 1. I don't know if he's 2, but he's right there. And again, I think a lot of Oklahoma fans, if Brent Venables were to move on, Josh Heupel would be a name at the very top of the list of somebody they would want to try and poach from another program.
I might be able to root for him again.
That playoff route though at Ohio State, that's fresh in my mind though. I can't get that out of my life.
That's a tough one, man. And you got a
Why
young
is
quarterback
Oregon
that's
not
playing
getting the
against.
same hate?
I mean, that was one of the best defensive lines maybe in all of college football. I mean, those dudes were incredibly good. And that was just going to make life difficult for everybody. And we saw it throughout the playoff. Nico was just a young quarterback, I think a little bit gun shy at times. And if you're gun shy against that defensive front, you're done.
Yeah, that environment, that team was jacked up beyond any level I've ever seen. Ohio State energy levels, freshman quarterback, already a poor decision maker when pressure's in his face. Just not a recipe for success there.
Let me ask you guys this. If we were buying stock on a coach heading into next year, and I said this coach has to improve on his win total from last year to this year, would you take Brent Venables, who won 6 games last year, prove on that? Or would you take Mike Elko at A&M, who won 8 games, but didn't finish very strong?
You can't take Texas 8-4.
Yeah, I'm taking Venables all day. They just got Arbuckle and John Mateer. I'm very high on Mateer.
I'm with you.
So
Those additions on the offensive side of the ball, not just the quarterback, but bringing the offensive coordinator with him. I think that shows some real, humility from Venables, self-awareness, something. So I'm not saying it's definitely going to work, but it seems like it's got a chance to work better than it did last year for sure.
Yeah.
Oklahoma has a better chance to improve their record, I think, than A&M does. A&M going from 8-4 north seems less likely to me than Oklahoma moving up from 6-6.
And it's all because of the quarterback. I mean, you got Marcel Reed versus John Mateer. I'm taking Mateer all day, every day in that.
I think we're all on the same page here.
I'm so glad I don't have to be the homer here. That's fantastic. I mean, I also think that Brent Venables is going to improve from 6-7. I think this is a team that is going to have another really good defense. If they can just answer the question along the offensive line, I think the offense is going to cook too.
I'm taking Jeff Lebby off the board because look, he's got to win some games there. They got to figure that out. And I'm taking Mark Stoops off the board. Who's most likely to get fired this year? Would you go with Venables or would you go with Hugh Freeze?
Hugh Freeze.
Boy,
I think if Freeze doesn't win 8, he gets canned.
I'll go Freeze too because I'm the Alabama guy. Of course, Freeze.
Yeah. Because I think if Venables gets to 8 or 9, I think he's safe. But he's got to get to 8 or 9.
Oklahoma's administration, particularly Joe Castiglione, their AD, who's been around for decades and decades, they're just a lot more stable than Auburn. So I'll always go Auburn if I get just in a blind taste test situation there.
That's like the first time stable and Auburn's ever been mentioned in the same sentence.
No, stable in Oklahoma is what I'm saying. I'm saying that, Auburn's the opposite of stable. Yeah, Auburn's the opposite of stable.
I think 7 wins, 7-5. It all depends on how it looks, right? Like if Jackson Arnold looks good, but the defense is a little leaky and they lose a couple close games by field goals, but you're 7-5, I think your arrow pointed upward still. You're like, oh, okay, we're close. Because remember, they played a lot of close games last year.
4 losing seasons in a row over there. I mean, 7-5 might be looking, pretty good to them after 4 losing seasons in a row, and they should be better. I mean, I disagree with any take that has them in the top 12, top 15, like I've seen in a couple of preseason rankings, but they should be an improved team. But I like Oklahoma improving more with Napier. I think Napier is just better than the Jackson Arnold that we've seen so far.
Auburn opening at Baylor. Their season
could be a loss.
Is Dave Aranda still there at Baylor?
Yes.
Just got
for some reason I thought he got. Yeah, I thought he got
blown up by LSU in the Texas Bowl.
Another coach that coached himself off the hot seat last year.
And they had a pretty decent portal haul too. Yeah. Baylor would be kind of a fun sleeper pick in the Big 12, where frankly anybody in that league could win it next year.
They found their quarterback last year, and that made all the difference. Once they got their passing game going, they were cruising.
He's the highest returning QBR in the country is Sawyer Robertson.
Texas Tech's found that landman money too. Watch out for them next year potentially as well.
One more question for you guys on the way out. You could put your money. I'm giving each you $1,000. You could put it on one of these coaches to make the playoffs next year, but you can only choose one.
Is that a promise?
Well, hypothetical. Brian Kelly, Kaylen DeBoer, Lane Kiffin. Who are you taking?
Ooh.
Brian Kelly.
Question.
To make the playoff. Only one of these coaches can make the playoff. You put $1,000 on him.
DeBoer.
Brian Kelly.
Lane Kiffin. I'll do it.
Kaylen DeBoer.
I'm going to go Lane Kiffin too.
I'll go DeBoer because he gets Brian Kelly at home. But even as the Bama guy, I had to stop and think. But I think
I'm changing my mind. I'm going DeBoer too.
Jimmy, I think Bama, they might miss the playoff in this year, but they are going to be absolute hell next year.
Jimmy,
I think Keelan Russell is going to be the big guy. As a true freshman, he's going to take his lumps this year. And as a sophomore, he's going to be really good.
Yeah, I think Ty Simpson will start out as the quarterback, but Keelan Russell will be the most popular player on the team with the fans. And Ty Simpson won't have the Jalen Milroe leash from a year ago. Ty's going to have to play well every week to keep it because there'll be a lot of eagerness to see Keelan Russell.
Guys, great stuff as always. Appreciate the squad huddling up and getting together. And thank you guys for making us your first listen every week. No matter what you're checking out, remember to follow and subscribe. Your favorite SEC show will be covering your favorite team throughout the offseason every day. And don't forget, I'll have you covered with the entire conference covering Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. We'll talk to you guys next week.